to Cracking the Rich Code, the podcast. I'm your host, John Verico, and I have with me today, I'm going to say it again, a very special guest, but it is so true. Amber McMillan is a dynamo, and wait till you meet her. I'm going to bring her on right now, and you're going to learn about this person who is also known as the Feisty PM, and we're going to talk about exactly what that all means. So, Amber McMillan, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm well. How are you? Thanks
I'm
for having
doing
me, John.
terrific.
Great.
So,
Awesome.
Amber, you first of all, congratulations. I wanted to say that because volume 17 of Cracking the Rich Code, which is the volume that you're in, that book is now currently on the street. That is as of today, and it is May 9th for those of you who are listening to this at a different time. So you can get the book on Amazon, but note that that is the standard edition, and you'd have to contact Amber directly if you want her special edition with her picture on the cover and all that great stuff. So, hi.
Hi.
So I noticed on your LinkedIn and also your website, you are known as the Feisty PM.
I am.
So can we talk a little bit about what is the Feisty project manager all about?
Well, first and foremost, often people think it's about my hair color because I think when they see red, they think, "Oh, feisty."
I think fiery.
Fiery, right? But feisty is also sort of another kind of word that connects pretty quickly to fiery. Certainly, if it's an adjective describing a person. But the kind of genesis of becoming the Feisty PM or coining the term the Feisty PM comes from my first career. The very first thing that I did as a professional over 30 years ago was I worked as a chef.
When you were still a zygote, apparently.
When I was very little. And I worked as a chef. I started out in pastry. I then was a caterer. I also did lots and lots of big events and weddings and all of that. And in the midst of doing that, I decided that I preferred to work with people and not be in the back end, because the chef is always in the kitchen. And I could do that. I knew my way around a kitchen. That wasn't my challenge. But I really wanted to think about how do I take this skill?
Cook myself.
Well, there you go. I mean, it really is a part of a lot of people's past. And of course, what I love about food is we all have to eat every day. So we all have food as a connector. But I wanted to think about how to do that more connecting with people. So I started teaching cooking. And in the midst of teaching cooking, I started to teach my students, my cooking students, culinary students, how to make spice mixes so that they could sort of amplify their cooking at home. Ooh. The very first spice mix that I ever kind of engineered myself and then taught to my students, I named it Feisty seasoning because it just seemed like a great word to describe amplifying flavor. Fast forward to, I didn't really hang up my chef's coat. I'm still capable and able of doing that, but my career took me in, a bunch of different paths. And I found myself also as an educator, not teaching food and actually being asked to teach, well, what other things in my life experience have I learned through all of these different opportunities? And so the feistiness became this prevalent thing for me. I'm the person in the room, John, I'm the one asking the questions. And often the questions that people aren't so sure they want to answer. And it's not because I am trying to be complex or difficult, or it's because I'm just so darn curious. I really am. I just have this insatiable curiosity to, analyze, why are we doing this? And what is this for? And what's our why as individuals, but also collectively? And so I think that's where the feistiness also kind of lies just in me. And then finding project management.
Amber, let me ask this question. When you talk about curiosity, why is it that people seem to have become so hesitant to be curious?
Gosh, I think because being curious requires vulnerability. Even if you're, and we would coin the phrase devil's advocate, which is that you're purposely choosing to ask questions. You may not actually have a belief about the question, but you're doing it to kind of stir the pot. That takes a provocative stand, as a human, and you put yourself in a vulnerable position, a
Hmm.
position where people can attack you. They can think things about you that are negative. And I think for a lot of us, we want to control the narrative about ourselves because, well, we feel like people will misinterpret our actions. And so I think that is really where curiosity comes to a halt. I think a lot of us are very curious with certain people in our life that we're very comfortable with. As
Yes, right.
you steal away and hang out with your really close friends, and you ask them all the questions, and everybody talks, but there's safety, emotional safety in those rooms. When you're in a public space, whether that be a digital public space or whether that be a physical public space, it's a little more risky to ask those questions. And I think for me, the feistiness for me has been, when I was young and naive, I would just ask all those questions, and my curiosity kind of got me in a lot of trouble. But what I've realized now is, I went through a season of not being that way out of the fear of being too vulnerable. And then getting to the other side of my experience with my own ego, which is, oh no, that vulnerability is really helpful. It allows me to authentically connect with people. So now I'm back to I'll just ask the question, realizing that, when someone thinks negatively of something I've asked or said, that's not a reflection of me. It's their perspective, and that's okay. Everybody's perspective has value. So
You've always
for
heard
me,
me
it's
say,
kind of
you should
critical.
ask why until you understand, right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and realizing too that the why for yesterday and the why for today may be different. That's
Ooh,
okay.
okay.
It's a journey to understanding ourselves and to understanding others. And I really don't believe it ever ends. I think for many of us, we tire of the work. So we kind of go, can I just have a break from, recognizing things in myself that I want to change? And yeah, you can take a break, but I think the true professional and people that really are compassionately curious about themselves and others, we keep doing the work, even when it's
Yeah.
sticky.
And
Yeah.
sometimes it helps in a lot of different ways. I mean, asking questions, because it's not only our own learning, but it also helps. It can be enlightening for the people being asked, right? It
Yes.
sometimes can open up. And as a coach, as I know you are as well, you know,
Mhm.
as coaches, we ask people why,
Right.
because that helps them to all of a sudden maybe realize where the situation lies. And it's an old joke, I think it goes around. It says, there's a guy who's always working overtime and weekends and everything else. And
Mhm.
so he was asked, why are you working so much? Why are you working so hard? He said, well, I need the money.
Mhm.
Okay, well, I understand that. Well, why do you need so much money?
Mhm.
Well, I've got three ex-wives I'm supporting. Well, why do you have three ex-wives? Well, they didn't
Right.
understand how hard I had to work.
Mhm. Wow. That's a full circle kind of, yeah. Gosh. I have a lot of clients and people that I hear often say that exact same thing, which is I work because I need the money. And I think I don't dispute that. We all need that. But money is a tool. Money is not an asset itself. It is only an asset if we make choices to have it add value to the lives of ourselves and others. And so, as a tool, what do we do with it? And I think that question I love to ask my clients. And oftentimes, what I discover is they haven't thought about it from that perspective. And that's okay. But I think it's important for us to ask ourselves those questions. Like, why do I feel I need this much money? Now, in that case, obviously, there's a need for high volume of it. But arguably, what puts that person in that
Right.
situation?
Well, I
How
mean,
did they get
do you need money because you're saving up for a certain purchase, or a
there? Exactly.
vacation, or a new car, or you want to move, or whatever it is, or are you just trying to build a nest egg into your retirement?
Yes.
And different people will look at different things, like, if you've known someone who had
Mhm.
a late in life illness, and then of course all their money went
Yeah.
to that, and then they were left, maybe alive but destitute.
Mhm.
They don't want to wind up in that predicament, or wind up going
Absolutely.
to a state-run nursing home
Right.
because they didn't have enough money for long-term care, whatever it is. So there's all sorts of reasons why people will do things, and you don't know what those reasons are unless you ask. And when
That's
we
right.
ask, we learn about people.
We do. We do. Yeah.
And that's how we connect.
But when we are asked, you and I, John, when someone asks us a question, it's the same for us. It gives us the opportunity to reflect on, well, what are the choices that I'm making, and what is the, what is the background on why I value that or I don't value that? And I think I talk to clients a lot of time about, well, what's the strategy? And I was speaking recently at a conference, and I wasn't speaking specifically about this, but for some reason in my delivery, I kept kind of spitting out this one sentence, and it was PM yourself. And the idea behind that was project manage you and your life and your strategic vision for what you want. And it just kept coming up into my mind. And it was funny because like I said, it wasn't the overall topic that we were talking about, but it felt in the room like that was something really valuable. And how often do we, whether you're a project professional or not, I think if you're human and breathing, you're a project manager. So let me be clear. The term project manager, I think, can be used to apply to every human I've ever met.
Yeah.
Because we are project-based species. This is how we approach things. We go to the grocery store, whether we have a list or we don't, it's a project, and we're managing the project of getting the stuff in the cart. Or if we're doing it virtually, it's still a project to sit down and add to the shopping cart and then go to, the cart and pay for it and have it delivered. So, the idea that we need to PM.
And I think so many people don't look at it as a project.
Yeah, I think because I think
a lot of us don't define it as a project until you look at it through that lens.
Right. Well, and the definition of a project is
now speaking
like a temporary endeavor. That's what we say. The definition of project is a temporary endeavor to produce a product, a service, or a result. And the uniqueness is that it's not something we've done before. So even a grocery shop, I don't know about you, John, but I don't buy the same stuff every time I go. I mean, I have a standard couple of things I get, but I'm in there making choices about other things based on, well, what's on sale, what looks good, and then what other things are kind of put in front of my path. The way I walk through a grocery store can greatly influence what I choose. Based on the definition of a project, that means I am project managing acquiring groceries every single time, because it's not the same thing. So the uniqueness is the unique stuff that I'm getting, and I'm procuring products, and that.
And you know what defines it for me? It's how hungry I am when I walk into this.
There are times where I look at what I brought home and I'm like, what was I thinking? But
I do that all the time. Well, this just looked good. I wanted to try it. Oh, I know. It's so great. So, when we talk about, and I mentioned, we're looking at it through a different lens, right? Looking at life and all the things that we do in life as through the lens of a project. And since we're talking about lenses, let's talk about what you wrote about in your chapter in the book. And you're talking about work ethic, looking at it through the lens of ethics. And I really like this whole perception. So can we talk a little bit about your chapter, what you wrote, and kind of what brought you to that mindset?
Yeah, so my chapter is deeply, deeply personal. It is not, it's a work for me. I put pen to page because I recognize that I have really struggled over the lifetime of my career with worth ethic, and not to be confused by work ethic, although very much closely connected, because I am an accomplishaholic is oftentimes what people like to call me, because I love to do things. I am always in pursuit of accomplishment, and I've had to take a back seat to some of my output in the last decade and evaluate what is my why? Why am I always in that accomplish cycle? And a lot of times it's because I have such insatiable curiosity, and that's wonderful. That's really great. But it isn't the only story. And what I have learned about myself and had to extract through a lot of help, support, coaching, is this idea that I actually misinterpreted for a good portion of my career work ethic with my own personal worth. And so my chapter is called Worth Ethic, and it is really this idea that, hey, let's not forget that having a great work ethic in the Industrial Revolution, which we are still living in, is valued and prized at a very high level. We receive money for it. We receive accolades. People move up in their stature with others in professional settings because of their work ethic. However, that doesn't speak to what that individual believes about themselves and their worth. And I know it doesn't, because it didn't for me. And unfortunately, I had to go through some really tough times in my career to recognize that I actually needed to recenter myself around my own intrinsic worth as a human being, the unique point of view that I bring, and the gifts
Right.
and skills that are inherently mine. And think about that being where my worth and my value is. And then once it's through that lens or that filter, then contribute, then work, then accomplish. And that's been the work of the last kind of, well, over a decade now of my life. And when I had the opportunity to be a part of this amazing collaboration, it was clear to me that that was what I wanted to share. And be vulnerable in sharing it, because as I spoke earlier, vulnerability is a thing that I think we struggle to do it as professionals a lot of the time, because we think it makes us look weak.
Right.
And I think for me in the last 10, 12 years, what I realized is my vulnerability as a leader has become opportunity for me to be far more approachable. Also very, very much an ability to be more authentically Amber. And when I speak and when I show up in rooms, I can just be myself. And that means a lot less energy for me being put out to try to convince people of my worth, because I don't need to convince them. I can just be present. And I can also see others' worth very differently, because I now understand.
And you don't need to put a mask on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think these are the hard lessons that I have learned. And so my hope in sharing in this chapter was simply, hey, this is my journey. This is my story. This is what I have felt. And also very much, I couldn't have done it alone. I needed support. I needed help. I needed a coach. I needed coaches in my life. And full disclosure, I am a coach today, not because I ever aspired to be a coach, but because I was coached and it changed my life. And I thought to myself, if there is any way that my journey can have a positive impact on others, I want to be in that moment. And I want to be able to share, and put in front of others what perhaps they cannot see about themselves, but I can. So that's my even coaching journey. And it's all represented in this chapter, which, yeah, I encourage people to.
And that's what makes you so likable, so approachable, so relatable.
Mm,
So for folks who are just tuning in, you want to go back and start this from the beginning so you catch all of it. But we're speaking with Amber McMillan, and she is the feisty PM. She is a she is an executive coach, and she has just written a chapter in volume 17 of Cracking the Rich Code in that book series. You definitely want to check it out. And it's all about worth ethic.
correct.
And that is a little bit of a tongue twister, and I love it. And it's such a great perspective of understanding how we show up,
Mm-hmm.
not only at work, but also in
Well,
life.
and that's the thing is, we never, John, you and I never cease to be human. There is no time where we can hang up that humanity. And I think many of us actually were encouraged to do that in a work environment for the last 100 years, definitely, but certainly in my career, the last 30 plus years, the idea that my identity, my humanity was not welcome in the workplace, only my skill set, only a curated version of Amber that was acceptable in the
Yes.
workplace was allowed. And that has created such heavy emotional trauma for so many of us as professionals. I know, because I felt it. And you said earlier that I would wear a mask. That's exactly right. In fact, many of us have multiple masks that we wear. And
Yes.
the hard part about that is that there are times where, yes, we need to present a version of ourselves that's going to be more applicable to the moment. So it's not about, even that presentation. It's about who authentically is actually going to share in that moment. You can dress it up however you want, but whose voice
Right.
is actually being spoken? And I think I would just
Oh, so glad you
yeah,
said
I would
that.
just want us all to be empowered to know that it is your unique point of view, John, that the world needs. It is my unique point of view that the world needs, because you and I, we are necessary and we need each other. And everyone, certainly this is another thing that I learned from being in a project management environment and in a projectized world, where we realize we are not solo. We are always with others. Team and teamwork is the way everything works, because it's in collaboration that we actually accomplish beautiful things that are in benefit to more than just ourselves. And that means
And that's
uniqueness, unique points of view. We don't want to homogenize the team. Homogenizing the team makes it inferior. We want to actually highlight the diversity of the team, everyone's own perspective and viewpoint, because then we actually have more opportunity to do better, to deliver wiser, and to create beautiful things that will benefit more people, and not just like,
because you can't see everything from one perspective.
it's not possible.
You and so there are so many people who still think that, that they are the be all end all and that they can do everything themselves, and they don't realize that we all rely on everybody else.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
you have a job, you go to work. Okay, great. Somebody's maintaining that building. Somebody had to build that road that you drive. Somebody had to manufacture that car.
Right.
Somebody's doing making the gas for that vehicle. All of that stuff. You're not doing it alone, no matter how much alone you think
You're
you
not.
are. You're
That's
not.
right. Yeah,
Mm-mm.
and I think there's a side to all of us, I think, on some level, that has that entrepreneurial solopreneur way about us. And that's, centered around our ego. And a lot of people use the term ego as though it's a bad thing. Ego is not a bad thing. Ego is an amazing thing. Our egos motivate and create so much opportunity for how we view the world. It is how we are in relationship with our ego that is really important. I know for me, and I won't speak to anyone else because I'm sure you got this right from the beginning, but I sucked at regulating my ego in my early career. In fact, I just felt like my ego was the thing that was going to lead me into all this great success. The challenge is that it wasn't attractional for others because it was self-centered. And what I came to recognize about myself was in relegating my ego, meaning in me having power over it, in understanding the parts of it that were really wonderful, but the other parts of it that could be abrasive, that could create harm, even unbeknownst to me. In relegating it, I have far more comfort with myself, with who I am, with my own point of view, and I can relate to others in different ways. I can take that sort of self-centeredness that naturally I had and think about it as in, okay, that's okay. But remember, just like you said, the road I drove on to get here, the building I'm in right now, this is literally exists for me to value it because other people did the work. And so I am never on my own. I am not disconnected from others. I am always benefiting from the teamwork that went before me. That's a game changer to your perspective on who you are and what you can contribute. It just allows you to see, wow, I am so indebted to others for the work that they have done. And as a
Absolutely.
result, I can look at others, anyone else. It doesn't matter whether they have different views than me, whether they were born and raised in a different country than I was, whether they literally have completely opposing approaches to life. I can see value in them because I recognize we are not disconnected. We are all a part of a synergy kind of that's happening in spite of our own egocentric selves. And so,
Well, if you think about it, we are connected to every other individual. We have something in common with
yeah,
them, even if that only thing that's in common is that stuff has happened to us in our life.
absolutely. That's
And you don't know what that stuff is that somebody else went through. And it's very different than the stuff you
yeah.
went through. and just understanding that we have things in our life that we're not in our lives that others are not aware
Yeah.
of. And so we just need to be more open, more compassionate, more understanding, and more appreciative of those around us. And you are the epitome of setting that up. And I really, really love when we have the chance to chat with each other. And we are almost out of
That's
time
amazing.
already. It goes so incredibly
It goes very
fast.
fast when it's you and me.
I have to say, you talked about a bunch of great things, and I think we need to just replay this. I'm gonna tell people to go and loop this and listen to it a few times because there's so many nuggets of gold throughout the conversation. But you talked about bringing your ego and you realize that our egos are really formed by all of the people around
Mhm.
us, right? We're a conglomerate of all the voices in our heads. People told us we can
Mhm.
do, what we're good at, what we're not good at. And then we chose to
Mhm.
believe or emulate those pieces that we
Yeah.
selected. And we've created from that this version of
Mhm.
ourself. And now we can take this version of ourself and maybe ask ourselves
Yep.
why.
Absolutely.
And that turns on the lights and go, oh, you know what? I've been thinking this all
Mhm.
along because of this, and maybe that's not true
Yeah.
after all.
And I know for me, I needed support to do that journey because it's really difficult to do that journey by yourself. So for me, I've had the same executive coach in my life for a decade now. And it really has transformed the way I approach my decision making about myself and my career and my profession. It is why now I also am a coach. And it is really my heart's desire to be in that space with others as they
Yeah,
need the support because
that's
I am
exactly
not
the same thing.
I'm not interested in telling them how it is. I'm just interested in being side by side with them on the journey so that they can discover these things for themselves. And it's
There we go.
absolutely, I mean, you do the same. This is what the work
Yeah.
of helping people
When
find their
when people come to us, well, no matter what it is that whether I'm doing leadership coaching or life coaching or lately a lot of public speaking coaching
Mm,
and stuff. People want to know my way of doing things, and I said no. Making a clone of me is not
not
not what it's about. It's helping you be the best
that's
you
exactly
and helping you find you. And that's what coaches do. And I think that's what makes you so gloriously
right.
successful at it. You know, Amber, like I said, I love having chats with you. I want to tell people how they can get in touch with you. So I know LinkedIn is probably a good way
Excellent.
for folks to reach out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you can find her. Now you can look up Amber McMillan on LinkedIn and you're going to find that her profile name is actually the Feisty
Yes.
PM. So I love it. But so yeah, you can go on LinkedIn and look for the Feisty PM or look for Amber
Mhm.
McMillan. And of course, you have your website, which is thefeistypm.com.
Correct.
Before we disconnect from our event today, what is one nugget of advice that you'd like to give to the listeners to this show?
I want everyone that's listening live and who will yet listen to recognize and to understand that I know your value is intrinsic. It is not based on anything that you can say, you can do, or you can act upon. It is simply inherent. You are here right now for a reason, for a purpose. And if you aren't clear about what that is, it's okay. I wasn't either. But the journey to finding who you really are is worth it. It's worth it because we need you. I need you. The world needs you, not a version of you that you're trying to create to impress us. We don't want that. We don't need it. We, as a planet, need you and your uniqueness. And so be empowered. Look to your right and to your left for the people in your life who see you and to see your value. And I would encourage you to work on that. Find a way for you to continue to ask yourself, who am I and what makes me unique, and be empowered by that. And if you need help, John or I are here. We'd be happy to help you.
That's wonderful. That is wonderful. You can distill that down to simply, you matter. World.
Absolutely.
We all do. Thank you so much, Amber. This has been a fantastic conversation. Folks, you want to reach out to the Feisty PM, definitely check her out. And if you did not listen to this from the beginning, you definitely want to go and play this one back. Have a wonderful afternoon, and we will see you in the next episode. Take care.
Awesome.